Thank you for sharing your insight in like what it could be, because while I was not like that um, negative towards it, but but still I was not super positive. You kind of inspired me in thinking, who knows, maybe this is gonna be the next chapter for the video game industry, and they're gonna be the driver, the leaders. Morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good something. Good day. Good chatting with you again.
Yes, it's already that time of the month. So everyone, before we start with talking about what we're going to talk about today, please put a comment, like if you can, subscribe if you haven't done it, and if you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's okay. It's on you. It's on you. But I remember names. I have all the names. I'm kidding. No, before we dive in, I need to clear some noise, because of course we're gonna talk. We already talked about the Netflix Warner Brother thing and Paramount, of course, last week with Sergio, and I need to clear some of the noise, because like now is a little bit clearer what's happening. Few people have made some statements. There's a lot of political drama and speculation around this deal. Honestly, most of it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The reality is much simpler. This was, we can say, a bidding process. Multiple media giants were involved. Netflix made an offer. Everyone else lost. That's how acquisition worked, right? This is like, I would say that we can start from that. Now, what we're seeing now isn't a better alternative that suddenly is emerging, but an attempt to disrupt a deal that had already been approved by the board. So the board rejected competing proposals more than once, right? So and that says a lot about what's going on. So Netflix didn't win because it made the cleanest offer on paper. It won because it made the offer most likely to survive regulatory scrutiny. Traditional media companies buying other traditional media companies are nightmares for all the regulators. And Netflix sits in a kind of a gray zone, because they're part media company, part tech company. So it is not that simple, but Netflix probably had the strongest position in that sense. So from a streaming perspective, the logic is obvious. Netflix gets HBO, DC, Harry Potter, and a massive catalog of premium IP without having to build everything from scratch. That strengthens its positioning and justifies higher prices. But there is a real risk that this isn't just a merger of catalogs. I think it could be a culture clash. HBO is about curation and quality, while Netflix is about scale and algorithm. So in the short term, consumers win. In the long term, we may get higher prices, and also content that is shaped more by data than creative intent. That's what they showed they're doing. So, and then also, and now there is also that part is really uncomfortable, even to say that, especially for us in gaming, and this is the most important part, because there's been like so much talk about this acquisition and about games. Oh, games, they're gonna be like that. Games, they're gonna be like that. But like, are games actually part of this? Because games are not the reason this deal exists. If they're not the driver, they're not the focus, they're not either side. So what's the deal for them with games? I think is really, really, really close to nothing. I think Warner Bros. Doesn't give a fuck. Netflix doesn't give a fuck. They both have shown in history they're not good at doing games.
Oh, I'll fight you on that one.
Okay, no, like you go on, but like they show that it's not the primary thing. How much of a damn they give, I don't really know.
So that I agree with. It hasn't been the primary thing for either of them. but Netflix has been scaling up its games over time. They're moving maybe slower than some people thought they would, and they're focusing on mobile to start with. Leaving that aside for a minute, yeah, Warner has been very up and down on games, but I would argue that they have probably had the most consistent success with turning licensed IPs into strong games. Everything from the Arkham series to Shadow of War to the Lego series to um, even the Mad Max game to a bunch of other games. So some of the Warner licenses have become the best games based on established IPs. Lord of the Rings, Jesus, yeah, back then. So they've done a good job at that, at least. But then I agree, like they seem to have been very sort of back and forth on how much they invest in games. They've done a lot of restructuring of their games division and things like that. And yeah, like Netflix said, the game side of Warner was I think they said, relatively minor consideration and wasn't part of the valuation, which makes sense. But I think that also focuses on the way their games currently look and work. Netflix's mission is to entertain the world, right? That's kind of their stated mission, and that covers all kinds of entertainment. The person that they have leading games, Elaine, who came from Epic and before that a mobile developer, has talked a few times. There was a bit of news around what he talked about at GDC last year. Talked about like what kinds of things that they want to do, and it's anybody who played Bandersnatch. That's kind of a good probably example of the things that Netflix want to explore, and they want to kind of find a way to mix film, shows, and games. I think he's also talked publicly about wanting to create a game that would allow a player to, watch an episode of a show and then play a game connected to that show, and they would do things in the game. And then when they watch the second episode, things have been impacted by what you did in the game. So basically, really taking it to the next level and really integrating the different forms of media. And I think what they have now is that they have IPs that give them a lot of possibilities in what they could do with that kind of thing. So you can have a Batman show and game, for example. That would be much, much easier to launch into that as opposed to trying to do this with an entirely new IP. So I think Warner Games today is probably not a big consideration in the acquisition, but the potential of the games that could be made using Warner IP and using the organization, that's probably more interesting. At least that's the way I would look at it.
Well, it's extremely interesting because it drafts like a third possibility, third scenario, which is them really thinking about the future of and a whole new era for video games. That I don't think that's what they're thinking of. I think like with all those new IPs, they can, they're gonna focus even more probably on game, but if not on games, sorry, but like on normal medias, on TVs and series. But so basically what you're depicting is like they want to acquire this so to get all those IPs so that in the future they can do something completely new, something that doesn't even exist today. The point is, though, this kind of acquisition is going to last, what, 2-3 years? It's going to be similar to Activision, right? That thing took long. Well, maybe there are less fuckeries in the terms of the international problems that they were there because at least they are in the same continent, so they can do things a little bit faster. But if that is going to take so long to get the deal done, then merging, because then there is the whole merging, and then if you want to do things in a very organical way, if you want to redistribute the power without just simply like, hey, everyone at Warner Brothers, thank you very much. He is like X. Now, get the fuck out. Now, here's my people, right? That's the fastest way. So if you're looking at that, then it could take, well, I don't know, like to 8 years before they get to something there. In the meantime, they have spent 82 billions.
Yes, I
So
mean, say the full acquisition takes another sort of 18 months or so, and then say they start development of a new game and show combination. Normally, a game maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years. A show somewhere between 2-3 years. Um, a new innovative concept that combines both, probably going to take a little bit longer. So you're probably looking at maybe 7-8 years before we really, really see something. Smaller things can happen faster, of course. One of the things I'm really curious to see what they end up doing is with things like HBO Max and Netflix. There must be a fair amount of consumers who have subscriptions to both. So if they just combine them, they'll lose half of that subscription money. Um, uh, so we'll see what happens. Maybe they keep both running. Maybe they segment them differently and sort of keep the sort of slightly different focuses they have. Maybe they do some early experiments. Maybe they go for something big in the future. There's a lot of different paths.
I don't know. There is also like their CEO, right? Or the co-CEO that said that it didn't, like, this whole deal didn't attribute any value to the division. I mean, that really, like, kind of make it sound like, really you
Well,
it's
Warner
not.
Games is relatively minor in the grand scheme of Warner. And I think they said it was not a factor in the valuation of the acquisition. Um, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have any plans for it. That's a different thing.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
also about sort of what they say about things. Keep in mind, sometimes it's around where they want the focus to be and where they maybe don't want the focus to be.
Okay. Do you think this is gonna be disruptive in any way for their industry?
Could be. Absolutely. I mean, if my understanding of what Netflix wants to do with games is that they want to do things that are new and innovative, and I think they want to do things that combine the sort of the TV format with games. Like I said, Bandersnatch is a good example, and I think if you look at some of the things that their lead for games, Toscan, has said, it kind of sort of leans in that direction of doing sort of interesting things. Um, with that in mind, yeah, I think their goal is to do something that would disrupt the industry, um, and hopefully, and the way I see it is it would disrupt the industry, hopefully in a way that kind of shows others what could be possible, and maybe breaks some new ground in the world of transmedia. There's a lot of everybody's been talking about transmedia for such a long time, but I feel like I don't feel like I've seen any great
Any
great work.
meaningful leap forward? Like,
Yeah, there's been sort of a little bit more in terms of collaborations. There's been better movies based on games. There's been some better games based on movies. There's been things like that happen, but sort of really mixing in between, really sort of creating, I guess what I would call true transmedia properties, and really really filling out that I feel like we still have yet to see. Um, and that's the kind of thing I think Netflix is positioned to push towards.
okay, I don't know.
That's
This
what,
kind
that's
of
what I'm hoping to see. That's what I'm hoping to see at least. Which is
yeah.
why I also find it interesting, because if they're well positioned to do it, it feels like it fits within what they're aiming towards. And if they do that, it'll kind of open things up for the rest of the industry as well. Maybe open some eyes to opportunities.
Yeah. I'm wondering though if, like, the rest of the industry then will be ready to catch up, because then, the moment you have that type of solid strength where you just, like, at some point, they acquire now Warner Brothers, the deal goes through, I'm sure they're already experimenting with something, and with AI being so. I remember that a month ago I was watching a podcast. Don't ask me which one, because I watched like 5 per day. So and someone was an AI expert was talking about the future of entertainment, and he was explaining how the future of entertainment is proper on demand On demand meaning on demand, meaning thinking about the book, thinking about the video game, thinking about the series, right? So if I want to read if I want to read the next chapter of War and Peace, or if I want to read the next chapter of the Hobbit, I will just ask. I want to read. If it was not written, okay, I want to know what's happening later. So give me another chapter. Give me another book of the Hobbit. Or the same could be for a game. So, for example, I have this big passion for Beyond Two Souls. It's a game that was fantastic. Nothing, there wasn't like a sequel. I would love it. So it was talking about the proper on demand. I want a sequel to that, and I'm 1 week later, 1 month, or I could get like a game that is maybe a small episode. I don't know, something, but the same could be. So that kind of ties with the idea of having this transmedia. So there is a new episode of the series, and then quickly there is there could be a new episode for the game. You watch the series.
I think if you wanna look at somebody who's looking at how that might actually be possible, because I think there's a lot of over attribution to the intelligence part of AI, and we've got to remember it's not actually AI; it's LLMs. Long story short, there's a company called Meaning Machine. They're doing some really, really cool work. Their game, which was originally a research project, has been getting a bit of attention. Dead Meat, I think it's called. They're doing work around basically working with AI, realizing how stupid AI is, and working with AI in ways that gives the author control back. And letting the author actually control and write a narrative while utilizing the strengths of AI to make that narrative more reactive to what the player is doing. But an AI can't really create a great story that reacts to the player on its own. It won't give you that kind of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It won't give you the beats that a human author will be able to pull together. And at the same time, a human author can't react live to what you are doing as a player, or as a reader, or as a sort of emotional human following the story or engaging with its characters. So marrying those two together is kind of one of the things that Meaning Machine are working on, and that's the kind of cross where what you mentioned could happen, where things that you do as a consumer maybe change how the story develops and what happens in the show, the game, etc., or even how they sort of interact with each other. But while at the same time allowing an author to keep control of the narrative and make sure that, yeah, based on what you do, these things will change, but the overarching is still going to be heading in kind of this direction, which gives us kind of freedom to be part of the world while still experiencing a well-crafted story and narrative.
Wow, man. Wow. Like, why, I don't know if you noticed, like I went to this Meaning Machine website. I shared it, and it's like, it looks amazing. I'm looking at it right now as we speak. I had no idea that this even existed. I'm going to have a better look at it. I'm going to see if there is something interesting for me. But
it's a really, really talented team. And I think...
Where are they based? Where are they based?
I think they're based in the UK.
Let me see. They say about us. Yeah, like doesn't say. But this Thomas Keane is the co-founder, so it looks like, yeah, Ben Acklandself probably. Anyway, well, so I don't know. Like, we're going back to this Netflix Warner Brothers. Like, I think we kind of there is still a lot to be said, and a lot to be seen, and a lot to be experienced. So the for me, it was really important to talk about this again, because like the news were like multiple, and I think we understood a lot more. Thank you for sharing your insight in like what it could be, because like while I was not like that negative towards it, but but still I was not super positive. You kind of inspired me in thinking, who knows, maybe this is gonna be the next chapter for the video game industry, and they're gonna be the driver, the leaders, the lead of the pack, and say, guys, this is the direction. Everyone wants that. Because when you said it, it kind of like, I had like a little light bulb in my hand, say like, Wow, that's something actually I would like to do, watching Sirius X and playing episode right away.
Yeah, and I mean, we're a creative, innovative, and adaptive industry. We move fast. We do cool stuff, especially like. As you often talked about, people often say that AAAs just kind of repeat the same thing in indies where the creativity lies. I think that's partially true, but sometimes you need a AAA's budget to like break some barriers.
Gustav, thank you again for being on the show once again, and I think we can say happy holidays to everyone. Let's hope that my big hope for 2026 is that the layoffs will slow down. Let's say at least slow down heavily if possible. Anyway, thank you everyone. See you next time and happy holidays.
Ciao.